It is hard to define youth, but it might be easier to imagine how it is often portrayed. In different countries, in different times, under different circumstances. What are we really talking about when we talk about youth? The answers to this question vary according to generations. Our grandparents' generation claimed that their youth was almost incomparable with ours. They often held vivid memories of the turbulence in the 60s. And they often refer to the Cultural Revolution when they talk about youth. Their personal stories can be viewed as an interpretation of the collective memories they shared. Collective memories can be created, changed, or even erased. When we hear their stories, we're looking at history from bottom up. We see how groups of people in the past negotiated and selected past in order to affect the present we're having today. Economics and politics shape our history and leave their footprints on the evidence historians have been trying to collect. The past is indeed owned by all, but history is shaped more by those in power, with wisdom, or maybe even by chance. Historical facts could only be reached by those who really spared their efforts in searching. One example of collective memories that our parents from China might share is the memory of Tiananmen Square protests in 1989, which remains a very controversial topic in both mainland and Hong Kong. When some student leaders look back, they said it was a disorganized and aimless movement. So maybe youth, to some extent, imply emotional, irrational, or even naive behaviors.
到5月下旬，学生已经处于财力耗尽、管理混乱、士气低落的境地，广场也一天比一天肮脏。
就在广场这么待着，待着要干什么也不知道，而且待着结局会是什么也不知道。
Then what do people in our generation say about this? Earlier this semester, the international students' tuition fee in Hong Kong U was raised. There was no official notification to students on this issue, and once the change was noticed by mainland students, a huge discussion spread within social networks. An online event was started, asking for an explanation and more communication between the non-local students and the school. And soon later, this triggered a broader discussion about the integration problem between the locals and non-locals in Hong Kong U, which itself didn't suddenly appear recently. In this case, the younger generation is becoming more aware of their role in the society. When faced with identity crisis and inequality of power in a new cultural environment, many of them don't just step back and stay within their comfort zone. Instead, they are reaching out from their own private matters to think of public issues. They're taking on a sense of responsibility. They try to perform the art of mistrust, and eager for a new level of reality, beyond the facade. I also interviewed my parents and some other people in the same age range, including my German professor, Cantonese teacher, several security guards in residential college, and some shopkeepers I randomly met. Since they often have direct communication with our generation, and they saw us grow, most of them are still the main force of the society. They expressed more concerns and worries than any other generations. They remembered well about the hardship they've been through as kids, the morals and rules being taught at school. They are both happy and worried to see what their children are experiencing in the new era. Technology innovations, better education, more competition and change, freedom in choices, and freedom of speech. According to a recent study conducted by the Chinese University of Hong Kong, the post-80s are not necessarily more rebellious than older generations. Although they often encounter confusion about their future, they are generally more optimistic. And the younger the group, the more satisfied and optimistic they are. The same optimism was also shown in our project. When I asked students from Hong Kong U to write down their first impressions on the term youth, their answers came as follows. If we categorize them and create a chart, we will see that the factors and words they mentioned mostly relate to themselves or their own lives. It might imply that they are more self-centered instead of possessing a sense of collectivism. The youth today are realizing their power. They are not only radicalized because of the influence of mass media. Many of them are well-educated, dedicated, and concerned citizens. Cchu argued in an interview about the protest against the Hong Kong government that the young generation were not only eager to participate in social movements, including protests, but also all aspects of social life. Christina Chan, a Hong Kong U student, went on to stress their concerns about universal values, liberty, democracy, and equality. When they try to put the universal shared values into practice, they are making a real change in human history. That is what we want to talk about when we talk about youth. And it is in this sense that we say history is owned by the youth.